Steel and Flame, Book 1 of the Guilds of Avlaan series is available on Amazon. If you like fluffy wolf lolly protagonists and Japanese light novels, follow the link below to check it out.
Hello, Leonardo Cornejo here with another video, and today we're going to talk about two separate matters with a similar context. And the context is that you'll just want a fucking witch hunt again. I will start with the one that matters the most for me, and that is this Vocaloid song made using the voice bank of Yuki Kai, which many, even people on our side team, are attacking because the voice bank was recorded by an elementary school student and they are basically misunderstanding the context and making things up. I will start by saying the most important part, and is that there is apparently a terms of service contract when using the Yukikai voice bank. I will address that later because really it's a bothersome can of worms, but the thing is, according to that terms of service contract, you cannot use the voice bank for obscene things, basically, for anything that could be deemed vulgar, obscene, basically. Be respectful to the voice actress, who was an elementary schooler. The age people are making up is not real. I mean, nobody knows the real age of the voice actress, but was an elementary schooler like 10 years ago, 20 years ago. I don't remember the exact date, but about 10 years ago. It has been a whole decade already when she was an elementary schooler, which means that it doesn't really matter anymore. But the thing is, there is a terms of service rule which says you can you can use it for something vulgar, because it was basically out of courtesy. The rule itself is a bit of a problem, and it's not really enforceable, to be honest, because you can't. I mean, it's hard to enforce, more than non-enforceable. It's hard to enforce, but it has been one of the arguments against this song, and I will say, and I will start with that one because it's the strongest argument. It's the strongest. I will start with the strongest because it's the strongest, that there is a terms of service rule that says that. But the thing is, that's where I bring up another thing. I am very against the position of this thing called death of the author. I have talked about it, about the importance of authorial intent. Authorial intent is all that matters here, because the only way to determine if it's really vulgar, if it is really obscene, if it really breaches the terms of service, and that's why I say it's hard to enforce, not non-enforceable entirely, but hard to enforce, is by proving the author had that intent. In this case, I don't see that intent. For context, you need to understand that the song is basically about a girl teasing her crush. It's basically Nagatoro in a song. People interpret it as vulgar, as obscene, as sexual, because they basically interpret it that way, but the authorial intent doesn't seem to be that. The authorial intent seems to be pretty much, as I said, Nagatoro, a girl teasing her crush, which is a very, very common and popular trope in Japan, even before. It has been a popular and common trope basically since, if not prior, since at least the 80s. Of course, nowadays it's a bit more playful and a bit more aggressive, curiously enough, than before. But there has always been this trope of the girl teasing her crush or being mean to her crush. It's basically a variation of tsundere. The thing is, that was the only thing one can catch from the authorial intent, without adding from one's personal interpretation. And what matters is authorial intent in this case. So, since authorial intent wasn't vulgar, wasn't obscene, wasn't inherently sexual, the rule wasn't precisely broken. At least that's a valid defense to say. Now, going back to that, are having much worse songs using that voice bank, which are not considered as breaking that rule. There are in general many much worse songs in the Vocaloid community worldwide, and particularly with that voice bank, I know of worse songs. I know of songs that are much worse, that have passed, that have been allowed, because the rule is hard to enforce. The rule is hard to enforce. As I said, it's not non-enforceable entirely, but it's hard to enforce. Now, the other arguments that the voice actress was a 9-year-old, it's irrelevant. It's like saying because a flute was carved by a 9-year-old, you can't play that flute if you are going to mix it with a vulgar song. The voice bank is a musical instrument. Legally speaking, it's a musical instrument. It's not the voice of the person. Yes, it's the data created by the voice of the person, but it's not the person. It's not the person, so the voice actress, who is, by the way, no longer an elementary school student, because that was in the past when the voice bank was recorded, the voice actress herself is neither reading nor singing the resulting song. So no minor was really involved in the creation of this thing. None at all. There were no minors involved in the creation of this thing, in the envisioning of this thing, in the singing. Nowhere was a minor involved in the creation of this song. Was there a minor involved in the creation of the voice bank? Yes, a minor who is neither a minor anymore and who is not the voice bank herself. So basically, no minors involved. The reason we have rules against CSAM, I think it's the correct term nowadays, and certainly it's not a term that YouTube will bring this video down for. The reason CSAM is illegal, it's not subjective, it's subjective. It's because to produce it you require coercion, force or manipulation. I already have talked about that before. And the reason images that are not made with a real person but are indistinguishable from a real human being are illegal is because that level of realism, and I am going to mention that because many will say, but when Shadman never made CSAM. The reason he committed a crime was because it was unlicensed use of the image of someone else in a disparaging way. That's why he didn't go to jail for that. That's why he got a cease and desist letter for that. Morally, it's still wrong. And it's still illegal to some extent, but it's not CSAM. And that's the thing with this one, because people are using the argument of, but it's like drawing a person in a... No, it's not the same. It's not CSAM, neither was. Only if it is realistic and indistinguishable from a real person, it becomes CSAM. And the reason it's illegal is because it is indistinguishable from CSAM. Basically, since it's indistinguishable, it creates the at least alleged. I am not a genius, I don't know everything, because some people say that doesn't happen, but at least the alleged increase in demand because there is supply. Which is why CSAM is illegal. It's because it creates demand, and production to make the supply requires coercion, force or manipulation. So basically, no, this song is not CSAM because there was no point in which someone was coerced, manipulated or forced to read it, to make it, and because it is not really even obscene in nature, which is why I said I am discarding the first one, I am discarding the first argument before anything else. Some of the terms used in the song have been interpreted by people in the West as obscene, but they are not. They are not in context. They are not because, turns out, language works that way. She's basically calling the guy freak, not pervert. I know freak also counts as pervert in both languages, and that's an important part. It's calling him a freak. It's calling him a degenerate, basically. But she's teasing him. She's humiliating him. I know there are masochists who have a fetish with that, but the idea is basically like Nagatoro, a girl teasing her crush with insults because she finds it funny, because she's stupid. In fact, the part where you have a part where the guy basically gets tired of her and she starts begging him to not go away, to give her attention, because she's teasing her crush. It's nothing inherently sexual or obscene or vulgar. And I repeat, worse things have been made with the Yukikai. It's rare because of the rules, but it has happened. Now, next step. The argument, as I said, the argument that this CSAM goes out. The argument about the guys and the size of his manhood being related to fish. No, it's not about that. The thing is, a loser in Japan, the term sako refers also to a small fry. The reason you have this big fish is because it's talking about, well, that's not true, the guy is not a small fry. It's a joke about a small fry, he's not a loser. She's just calling him a loser to tease him, but he's not a loser. So he's not a small fry. He's not sako, he's a bigger fish. He's a big fish! It's not about his manhood. In fact, the fact that you have the size comparison between fish and later on the height comparison between the fish and the girl, it's because he's literally even probably taller than her because she's short. So basically, it's not that that they are talking about his manhood. It's literally about his height and the how do I say it, and I have the word because I have used it, the height and the I forgot the word, but it's related to both height and importance of his personality. Basically he's not small in any sense of the word because he's actually a cool guy. That's why he's a cool guy. That's why she has a crush on him. But she's basically trying to tease him by calling him a loser. He's not a loser. His stature, both physical and in terms of personality, his stature is contrary to a small fry. That's the joke. And apparently people don't understand it. At least that's a more valid interpretation than thinking, oh, it's about his dick. No, the fish is not his dick. It's him. That's the thing. The fish is the guy. The fish is a representation of the guy. And you have this small fish, this small fry, that she's portraying him as this sako, which is a small fry. But he's actually not a small fry. That's the joke. The fish is the guy. It's not his penis. It's him. He's not small. She's belittling him, knowing he's not small. Maybe it's because I'm a writer. Maybe it's because I understand Japanese a bit better than even my own culture at this point because of so much Japanese culture I consume. Or maybe it's because I always try to look at the best side of people, that I don't assume anything obscene from this song. She's just teasing the guy. So the whole thing about CSAM doesn't count. And finally, well, the thing is, there is no 9-year-old involved. First of all, the age of the elementary schooler who recorded her voice for the voice bank was never specified. The age of the character is 9 years old. The idea that the voice bank came from a 9-year-old girl comes from the fact that the character had a profile, but we don't know, because the identity of the voice actress was never revealed. The identity of the voice actress was always kept private, in part because of situations like this. Because they didn't want to cause her any trouble as she grew up a normal elementary schooler life. We don't even know if she's still a voice actress at this point, because she's already an adult, because that was in the late 2000s. It has been more than a decade since then. So no, there is no children involved in this. There is no vulgarity. There is no CSAM. It was all a moral outrage created through misinformation and lies by some people with the intention of harassing the artist. And that's exemplified by the fact that the same people, when the artist released another version using Akita Neru instead of Yuki Kai, still harass the guy. So no, the guy is still being harassed because the purpose was never about fixing a problem or fixing a breach of contract or preventing a crime. If the guy committed a crime, if the guy really committed a crime, call the cops. If the guy really is making CSAM, call the cops. Don't start drama online, call the cops. And then, when the cops already got the guy, you start drama. That's the right way to do it. Someone else also mentioned that in another context, in a different case. If you think someone is committing a crime, call the cops, then start the drama. If not, it's just an accusation of wrong thing. And that includes the case with Shadman, and that includes the case with Dr. Disrespect, and that includes this case. If you are only going for the moral outrage, you just want drama, or you just want to harass someone, you just want a witch to burn. Now, I will address something else, because I think people should stop using Yuki Kai entirely. Why? First of all, I will say, I think the existence of Yuki Kai was a mistake. Because I think entertainment, especially acting, is no place for children. I have seen so much fucked up shit in acting that, in fact, I will say it. Things like Cuties, things like Law and Order SVU have more fucked up lines than anything I have seen in a Yuki Kai song, including the ones that I have said are worse than this one. You have, in the entertainment industry, in the mainstream media, children who are asked by adults, for in whatever means possible, to read lines that are much worse than anything in the specific song we are talking about today, and anything in any fucked up Vocaloid song. And there are many fucked up Vocaloid songs, including songs about sexual themes, about incest, and in film, in television, in mainstream media, you have real children, live children, who are asked to read much worse things for the camera. Children shouldn't be in entertainment. Simple as that. Children shouldn't be in media. Maybe there are forms of entertainment where they could be, but, for example, I don't know, painting, where they don't need to even show their face. Writing, where they don't even need to show their face. Writing and painting, yes, they're certainly, because they are safer. But in acting, in voice acting, and I think even in music and VTubing, which are basically related to acting and voice acting, they shouldn't be present. They shouldn't be present, because time and time again we have seen proof that that's risky. That's risk behavior, and it has hurt them. Just look at all those child stars who end up becoming criminals, drug addicts, or literally asylum patients because the environment is just unsafe for them. So yeah, entertainment is not safe for children. It's not an environment safe for children, especially acting, including voice acting. So yeah, in that regard, I think Yuki Kai was a mistake. The very existence of Yuki Kai was a mistake. And the rules they place, this terms of service rule, this alleged, because I haven't read the terms of service myself, but this alleged terms of service rule, which is totally possible and actually reasonable. It's just an attempt at fixing the mistake and preventing bad things to happen from happening. But even then, it is hard to enforce, and it also limits the creativity of the composers. So, the solution: stop using it entirely, because it was a mistake. At least that's the solution I propose. I think really ceasing the use of Yugi-Kai entirely might be the safest bet, because you don't risk breaking the TOS. You avoid the risk of breaking the TOS, and you are not using something that was a complete mistake in its existence. I know many people do like Yugi-Kai. I know people like the voice bank. I know there are really great songs, and I have listened to them using the voice bank. But the rules are proof that it was a bad idea. Its creation was a bad idea. Because, and I repeat, children shouldn't be in acting, in voice acting, in VTubing, in singing even. It's basically child exploitation. Not sexually necessarily, but it's child exploitation. And seriously, if you are going to complain, go complain about things where children, real children, not a voice bank, read some really fucked up things. Because I have seen it. I have seen it. In Law and Order, which I used to watch before that Gamergate episode, I saw really fucked up lines spoken by children, and I was in my teenage years, and I always wondered what kind of parent. I always felt it was wrong, because I was like, what kind of parent asks a child to read that? Do they know what they are saying? Do they know what they are reading? And nobody seems to care. And it's just an example, but there are other films, other TV shows where children say some really things no child should be saying. I will put it that way. Things no child should be saying in a healthy context, and some that might be disturbing for children if they heard it, or if they say, or if they read it. I don't know how you get a child to act in such a painful, disturbing role, in a role that makes you uncomfortable as an adult. But that's mainstream media. I'm talking about television, I'm talking about film, I am not talking about independent acting. So yeah, there are much worse cases and people don't really care, but when someone starts a moral outrage, everyone loses their mind. So yeah, I say, you just wanted a witch. And you burned a witch. Twice, because apparently deleting the song and remaking it with a different voice bank was not enough. No, you just want a witch to burn. You just want to harass a guy. And for something that is your interpretation. And I will be honest, I am frustrated and disappointed even with people who I consider friends over this, because seriously, the intent was not there. The authorial intent was not what people are interpreting. The authorial intent was entirely different. At least, maybe I am naive. I am naive. Some people have said I am stupidly innocent for my age, because I don't see the obscene authorial intent people interpreted. But maybe I am naive. But I also know that Japanese people are more fearful of the law and the rules, so I will assume the person knew the rules and they had no obscene intent, because as I said, I know Japanese people are more cautious and fearful of the rules than, for example, I don't know, Mexicans. Here in Mexico we are lawless people, to be honest. I mean, seriously, if someone can bend the rules, they will bend the rules here. I don't know how it is in the rest of the world, but I know certainly that compared to Japan, Mexico is a lawless place. So since I am the naive guy from Mexico who really assumes the best from other people, I don't think there was an authorial intent of obscenity with this song. I think that's something people interpreted because they wanted to be angry. They didn't want the truth. They wanted to be angry, they didn't care about the facts, they didn't care about the logic, they just wanted to be angry. And that's a problem on social media, especially in the West. People want to be angry. People want to hunt the witch. People want to persecute people. And that's exactly what's happening here. And I haven't seen it before, because as I said, that's exactly the problem with the case of Shadman and Dr. Disrespect, that people don't address the facts, they want to be angry. Dr. Disrespect probably didn't do anything criminal, and probably also nothing sexual. He probably just said some stupid things and that's it. And I'm basing that assumption on the fact that the cops decided he did not commit a crime. So if law enforcement said he did not commit a crime, there is a good chance he did not, because that's their job. And Shadman, illicit use of the image of someone in a disparaging way, which is wrong, but it's not CSAM. It's still wrong. What he did is still wrong. What he did is still a dick move. Now we take a small break and go to the next topic, which is less personal and even simpler. So let's go there. Well, back to the second part, which is about Kingdom Come Deliverance, and some really weird and stupid claims made about the game. First of all, I will say the game is woke, and I will address that. But first, we are going to address the artificial moral outrage, which was this claim mostly promoted by people like John de la Roz con Popote. You know what I mean. You know what I mean. I hate that guy. Daniela. Let's also from now on he's Daniela, if you know what I mean. Daniela, wife of Lucario. That's the most proper name for him. And of and his friends, his circle of imbeciles, of useful idiots, who were claiming that the game was CSAM because you can romance a guy who happens to be based on a medieval figure who was at some point a 15-year-old in the historical context of his existence. Notice that I say at some point, because that's like basically saying that's the stupidest argument you could take, because basically it's like if you said, oh yeah, at some point your girlfriend was 10 years old, so you are a fucking pedophile. If you don't think that's stupid, you are a fucking retard, to be honest. But the thing is, since it was worded differently, people fell for this one because it was worded in a way that it's very manipulative, and of course we are talking about manipulative people here. We are talking about people who lie and cheat to get away with their plans. The way they worded it is very manipulative. It's exactly made with the intent of making you confused and of making you angry. It's basically made with the purpose of creating artificial outrage. But the thing is, and that's the important part. The thing is that they started claiming that the game itself is pedophilic and it's CSAM because the guy you can romance is based on a historical figure who at some point of his life was 15 years old. Not that the character is 15 years old, because in fact there was this explanation that he's aged up already in basically it happens after the moment in history when he was 15 years old, but that the historical figure at some point had the age of 15, and therefore it's CSAM. It's a stupid argument. Now, it is a woke game and it's related to that character, but The claim that it is CSAM is just an attempt at sabotage because the game was successful despite being woke for multiple reasons, including the fact that, well, it was a well-known brand and the game itself wasn't that bad. It wasn't a Dragon Age Veilguard case. That's the thing. It wasn't a Dragon Age Veilguard case in which even the reputation of the pre-existing product doesn't help it. And it was obviously not a case like with Concord or with Dustborn, where it is a new brand, and since it is a new brand, any failure is twice as hard. But the thing is, since it was a success, people were... The truth is, it was a success. It's the truth. The truth is, the game was a success. And since it was a success, people were angry. I was disappointed. I was disappointed on the fact that people seem to have very little self-control, and they basically fell for the fear of missing out on this one. But angry I was not, because I don't care enough. And because I have a very lengthy explanation to say about the wokeness in this game. But the thing is, since they were angry, they wanted a justification to sabotage the game. And they had to come up with this excuse because they found this bit of lore of the game where this character, I think his name was Hans, is based on a hero who was 15 years old when he did the adventurous and heroic things he's relevant for. But the character is not modeled on the body of a real person to begin with. There is no real person to make the model of the character. The character is older, and this is a bit of more like irrelevant trivia, but also a counter argument, because in context of medieval Europe, the legal age was often 15 or under. In many countries of medieval Europe, the legal age for marriage, not just of consent, because generally speaking, age of marriage and age of consent were the same thing, was 15 or even under 15. So basically the whole, oh, but you are romancing a 15 years old man, it doesn't matter, and he's not 15. Basically, the age of a fictional character based on a real character doesn't really matter. If that was the case, if it did matter, all those guys drawing Ruler D4 of Alice in Wonderland will be in jail. That's all I can say about it. That's the summary of the whole thing. All those guys who make Ruler D4 of Alice in Wonderland will be in jail if the age of a fictional character based on a real person who is already dead will matter. So no. There are no explicit sex scenes with Hans in the game. There is, as far as I know, you don't see his penis and you don't see him being penetrated or penetrating anyone. So there is no pornography, and there is no minors affected by this. It's a claim made up by an imbecile and his useful idiots because they were angry because the game was successful despite being woke. That's the thing. There is no victim. There is no harm, there is nothing. It was just a big nothing burger made up because they wanted to be angry. Because they were more like they wanted you to be angry because they were already angry because the game was successful despite being woke. Now, is the game woke? Yes, and I am not buying it. And I think Babra is a fucking idiot because when Reb was defending him, Babra attacked Reb, who was defending him. Babra is a fucking idiot who attacks people who defend him because he's on the defensive, because he expects backlash, because the game is woke, and because he betrayed his previous principles. And it's evident that it's because of outside pressure. And the romancing option with Hans is bad. It's bad because it's a retcon. It's a retcon because both characters were officially heterosexual from the beginning, and because Babra himself said, because he is heterosexual and we are making a story about you playing as him, not about you projecting on him. So basically Babra self-contradicted and did a retcon, and you can see that in the claim from the community management, not Babra himself but community management, saying, oh, we didn't give him a homosexual romance option because we didn't have the resources at the time. That's a lie. Everyone knows that's a lie. the reason the game got woke, and that's more of an assumption. The reason the game got woke seems to be pressure from the outside, pressure from the corporate publishers who are demanding diversity everywhere. Why? Because it's very evident by Babra's attitude that he was on the defensive and he was not happy with the fact that he knew there would be backlash. I think he knew, and I think he himself is not woke. He just gave in to pressure from the outside to make the game more diverse. And why I think that? Because in both cases it looks like malicious compliance to me. You can have a gay romance option in the game, but the people will react to it like they will react in medieval Europe, with mostly rejection. Basically people reject homosexuality there, and they are like uncomfortable with it, and you can even risk getting killed for being gay in that game. So it's very evident it wasn't basically gay friendly. Basically the setting is not gay friendly, and it is not praising homosexuality, more like acknowledging it happens, and that when it happens it ends in tragedy. Basically I don't think it was intentionally, I don't think it was a positive gay friendly portrayal of homosexuality, more like a realistic, gritty representation of homosexuality at the time. And I think that was because he was pressured. He was told, make the game more diverse, and he probably said, well, I will make it more diverse. But diversity was not precisely something popular in medieval Europe. So your character gets ostracized for being homosexual. So yeah, I don't think he was trying to deliver the message, which is what they wanted from him. Deliver the message of diversity, and he was like, yeah, I'm going to deliver, but not the message of diversity. I'm going to deliver the harshness of medieval Europe. Make it realistic. I want realismus. I want it real. I want you to feel the horse dung in the air, the horse shit in the air when you enter the stables, because it's realistic. You know, I hate realism. I hate the obsession with realism in creative fields, but whatever. The thing is, I don't think he wanted to make it basically gay sex propaganda. Have gay sex with hands. No, it was more like they wanted me to make a faggot here. they wanted me to make a gay character here. Well, let's make the gay character vulnerable and discriminated like they were in real medieval Europe. Let's give them realismus. Let's give them the homophobic realismus of medieval Europe. So yeah, I don't think he wanted to make a gay friendly game with that. He wanted to just they asked me for diversity, so I will make it diverse, but diversity wasn't welcome in medieval Europe, so I will make the diversity unwelcome. And then we have this character, I think his name is Musa or Mosa or Musai, I don't know. And I'm not a native English speaker, so forgive me if I mispronounce him. If I say it as if it was the plural of moose, which I don't know if it's mis or musai. But if I mispronounce it as musai, sorry, I'm not a native English speaker, and I am certainly not a native speaker of whatever language his name is in. But you have this African guy, I think it's Musa. This African guy who nobody fucking likes. And he's annoying, and he's always basically talking negatively about Europe. And he's like, oh, in my country we have this, and in my country we have that, and you are inferior, you white people, white devils, I hate you. I think he's another example of malicious compliance, because he's very diverse. I mean, we are talking about an African guy in medieval Europe, which was a rarity back then. And he actually behaves like some of the African guys who went to Europe. No matter how bad Africa was, no matter how bad things were, Europe was bad because they fucking hated the Europeans, because they felt superior, because they were in conflict most of the time, and because that was the mindset. Foreigner equals inferior. No matter where you went, you will always have one asshole who thinks foreigner equals inferior, even if they were in a foreign country. And Musa is that asshole. And that's why I think it's malicious compliance. Make it more diverse. Put a black character, put a gay character, but the gay character gets discriminated, and the black character is the stereotypical foreign asshole. And he knew there would be backlash, and if you pay attention, he defended the game, and he defended the gay romance option, but you don't see him defending Musa. You don't see him defending Musa at all. People basically talk shit about Musa, and he's like, yep. As long as they don't say the game is woke, he's like, yep. Avlaan doesn't defend Musa at all, because he's an asshole. And I think it was on purpose. I don't think he was written to badmouth white people because that's the message. I think he's meant to be annoying, and people say, oh, but you can't kill him because you can't kill this NPC, then that means he agrees with the message. No, I think that's on purpose. I think that's because Avlaan wants to make you feel annoyed by Musa. I think Musa is supposed to be annoying. I think he's a fucking asshole on purpose. And I think that's the point of the whole character, that he's this foreigner asshole who you can't get rid of because he's still a diplomat. He's this foreign asshole diplomat you are forced to tolerate through and through. And you want him dead, and everyone wants him dead, but you have to tolerate this fucking foreigner diplomat even if he's an asshole. And he's making even shit up, but he's just talking shit. He's just trash talking because he hates the country he was sent to. And you have that kind of asshole in history, and will often create diplomatic crisis. I have seen that kind of asshole. An example was the American ambassador to Japan, who basically treated Japan like dirt in his shoes. This guy, Raim Emanuel, I think was his name, who hated Japan, and it shows, and basically treated Japanese people as pushovers because he hated them, and it shows. And he basically he was there to harm Japan, I'm sure of it, because he basically just forced his way into everything. And that's the thing. I think that's the purpose of Musa. It's an act of malicious compliance, of saying, yeah, we made the game diverse by making the black character the most annoying, despicable asshole in the whole series. And of course he had to be a diplomat. He had to be a diplomat because that's basically anyone who... basically foreigners were mostly diplomats and merchants. If I was asked to make an African character in a medieval Europe setting, in good faith, I mean, if that was my job and it was in good faith, or if I felt like doing it, I would write a merchant. I will make a merchant, this friendly merchant who is always selling you weird shit he brought from Africa. And in fact, that's a character I couldn't include in my writing, but I had this idea of when I mention it in my writing. I have in the Guilds of Avlaan series this location called Port Udak, which is a place of merchants. It's full of merchants. There is a huge market full of people from all over the world, and I had this idea of this merchant from the southern continent, which is the equivalent of Africa, who basically and it's not even really his culture, but he dresses like this kind of stereotypical African warrior with animal skins and the spear and face paint. He's a bit more from the north actually, but he has that look, but it's not even his culture. He's just doing it for the show for business basically. His regular attire is more of a desert-like attire when he's not in business, and actually he often actually wears like formal business clothing. Like his casual clothing is the casual clothing you would imagine from an African desert region, and his formal clothing is formal European. His business clothing is formal European clothing, but when he's in the market, when he's selling his goods, he dresses like very stereotypical with the animal skin and all that. To drive customers, and he always acts like showy and all that. And he sells weird stuff. He exists in the lore, but he hasn't been written yet because I haven't come up with an excuse. But when I was writing the story, it was going to be a video game, and the Udak market was where you got rare items, and he was the guy selling them. He was this really flamboyant guy selling rare items brought from the southern continent. And you have and I want actually to include him in a side quest, which was about him sending you to hunt manticores, which escapes from his business, because manticores in mythology came from Africa. So basically he had all this weird stuff from the south, like type of Pliny the Elder stuff. Imagine that, Pliny the Elder almanac stuff, like the foot of a Seapod and things like that, because Pliny the Elder described really weird stuff in Africa, and I had this idea of all this really weird stuff does exist in the southern continent, because it's a world based on mythology and fantasy, and you have this guy who sells this weird stuff, and he's from the southern continent. Since it was a side quest and I basically cut the side quest while writing, I had to remove him entirely. But I will find a way to explain his to display his existence in another book, maybe as a starting quest or something, with the fight against a manticore. It's funny. The thing is, if you want to write an African character or inspired in Africa, as is this case, in a positive way, you can, even in a medieval setting, through a merchant or through a diplomat. Merchants and diplomats were basically everyone who came from Africa. The idea is this guy is basically from the equivalent in my writing to Ethiopia, so he really has the look of an African man, but the clothing is not the stereotype of the how do I say it, of Shaka Zulu with an animal skin. No, it's more like an Ethiopian merchant, and he's always like pretending, having this false image, this stereotypical look to sell more, and that's the idea. Like, he's this friendly, showy merchant. So you can write an African or African-inspired character that looks cool, but and that is likable. That's the thing. That's not woke. You can have this African character who is likable and it's cool, and that's the reason I wanted to write that such a character, is because, well, I thought, well, I think if I'm going to write this basically past world, you can have Americans from Africa, well, the equivalent of Africa, which is the southern continent, and they can be likable. Why not? In fact, back then I was like thinking of ideas of things that people now respond to negatively. In fact, I was coming with that idea while the first Kingdom Come Deliverance was announced and people were upset because there were no black people, and I was like, well, let's say you want to make an Europe setting and have a black character. How do you make it not woke? That's what I thought back then. How do you make it not woke and make it make sense? Trade, make him likable, make him non-political, make him focused on selling weird stuff brought from the south, crazy shit brought from the south, and I'm selling it to these guys from the north who have never seen this crazy shit before. That was my idea. Make it fun. Make it fun. That's a difference. When it's woke, is make it the message. When it's not woke, is make it fun. When it's woke, is make it diverse. When it's not woke, is make it exotic. Make it cool. Rule of cool is very contrary to wokeness if you think about it, because it has nothing to do with the message. And I thought that was a thought experiment. The guy doesn't even have a name because it's basically an script idea which I want to rework. When I scrap an idea, I don't just discard it. I start reworking it. And I want to rework this idea because, as I said, it was when I thought of Steel and Flame and as a video game, and I had all these side quests and secondary characters and background characters and merchant characters, of which only C3 remains, and he was the guy selling potions, by the way. He will basically you will go to his ship to buy potions. He's one of the few merchants that remain. But I had this idea of these basically different places you explore with different merchants, and at Port Udak you had Citrus ship stationed there. That's where you find him after his first appearance, because otherwise would be a spoiler. But before that you find some weird alchemist masked guy who maybe was Citrus himself, but I never elaborated on that. But the idea was this weird masked guy with a gas mask, with elements of the Doctor de la Peste masks, selling potions. And after Citri's first appearance, you have Citri in the same ship selling potions, and you have all these weird merchants. So that was the idea. You have weird merchants from everywhere. You have weird merchants from Asia, well, to the equivalent of Asia. You have weird merchants from the southern continent, and you have this black guy as one of the merchants. And that's the thing. That was the purpose in the game of the existence of Port Udak, and I added it in the story because I wanted it to be a part of the story too, so that you can visit the place, and not just as a side quest, but as a mandatory storyline place. And you go to the market and get all the cool, weird stuff that you don't find anywhere else, including some things that I would like to. As you know, like inventory and things like that, instead of having missables, because I hate it when the game makes you miss things. When you, for example, you didn't get the sword, and you didn't get the sword in this part of the story, you never get it. I hate that. So one of the ideas was that one of the merchants from there, if you didn't get the sword at the right time, you can buy the item, because it's not necessarily a sword, but if you didn't get the item at the right time, you can buy it from one of the merchants there, who sells exotic stuff. Of course, it will cost money in the game, which is game money. It's not real life money, but that means basically that if you weren't lucky or didn't work hard enough to get it, you can pay to get it. You can grind to get it, grind to get the money to buy the item. And not worry the player with, oh, you didn't get it in the right order, fuck you, you never get it. I hate that in games. So I had this market where you can get rare shit, and I had this character. That's the thing. That's why I think Musa, whatever, is malicious compliance. He's there because they asked Babra to make the game woke. And he was like, yeah, I'm going to make it diverse in a way you won't like. But the game is woke. The game has retcons. Wait, I will take a small break. Wait. Well, back to what I was saying. The game is woke. The game has a woke retcon. And I think it was pressure from investors. Why? Because that's something people were pointing at even before Babra started defending the game. The investors probably asked for diversity, and you had all these games magazines and the games journalists praising the game over diversity. The investors wanted the support of these magazines, and they wanted diversity for that. Basically, it's the fault of games journalists. It's always the fucking games journalists demanding people to do things. They wanted the game to be diverse, because the games journalists demanded that for support. And the investors who are generally not very aware of the environment, they basically can't read the room. All they can read is spreadsheets. They said, if games journalists support the game, if mainstream media supports the game will be a success. It was going to be a success anyway, because it's Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 and Kingdom Come Deliverance 1 was a hit. But they were like, then the game will be a success, we will have a return on investment, so you make it diverse, you appease the fucking journalists. And Barbara had no choice but to say, well, we need... make it gay and make it black, basically. We need a black character and we need a gay character, so that we can say it's diverse. We need our tokens, so that we can say it's diverse, and they will be satisfied with that, and the investors will be satisfied with that, and the games journalists will buy the debate and will say it's diverse, and they won't start harassing us like the last time. I think that's why Barbara got angry when he realized it backfired, because he was on the defensive already. He already expected the backlash, but he had to do damage control, and he knew he couldn't, because the truth is he sacrificed his integrity because of pressure. He wanted to make these characters not because he liked the idea, but because he gave it into pressure. And because of that he did an act of malicious compliance, because basically, if both sides are going to hate me, I will make sure at least I get the last laugh, basically. And that's probably his position. If both sides are going to hate me anyway, I will get the last laugh. And his last laugh was making Mosa the most fucking unbearable asshole, and making the gay romance option basically the make everyone your enemy option. That's why I think it was malicious compliance. That's why I think he isn't woke, but he caved in. He caved in to woke pressure, and the game is woke. Barbara himself is not, the game is, and the people at community management are. The people at community management absolutely are, but that's something Barbara doesn't control, and basically they could probably be related to the problem. Maybe it's HR, maybe it's someone else, but the thing is, I think Barbara is not woke. I think he actually hates such people with a passion, especially after what happened with the first game. And I think the fact that Mosa is annoying is proof that it is malicious compliance, but it backfired. Why? Because it's still woke. Woke malicious compliance is still malicious compliance, and it will damage your reputation. That's why when you write such characters you need to think in, as I said, not in diversity or a message, but in rule of cool. But Barbara didn't see it that way. He saw it as, I can have my cake and eat it too. I can comply to these idiots, make malicious compliance, and be liked by both sides, and if anyone of either side complains, I just go and pick a fight. With whichever side complains, I go and pick a fight. And he ended up making me think that I am not going to give the game a chance, even after a wait and see, because when Rev says this, said wait and see, instead of saying thank you, Barbara was an ungrateful imbecile and attacked him, and never admitted he was an idiot. So, since Barbara is an idiot, I am not buying from him, even if he himself is not woke, and especially not a woke game. I regret having purchased the first game, but it's too late. It's too late. And I guess the game does have a merit, so just never purchasing the second game. Never purchasing anything made by Barbara again, until Barbara admits he fucked up with Rev. That's it. But as I said, the game was a success anyway. The game wasn't a failure, because the game wasn't going to be a failure, because you need to fuck up harder, like Dragon Age Veilguard, for it to be a failure, because the malicious compliance was not woke enough to ruin the game. You need to do something like Veilguard to ruin the game, and because it was a pre-existing intellectual property, unlike Avlaan, which is not that bad. Something funny is that it's not that bad compared to, it's important to say, compared to Dragon Age Veilguard, compared to Concord, compared to Dustborn. You need something to be at least as bad as Avowed when it comes to new IPs, and you need something as bad as Dragon Age Veilguard to fail with old IPs. And in fact, yes, Kingdom Come Deliverance is a woke game, we already explained why, but it is important to say, you have tolerated worse. Because it is not nearly as woke as Dragon Age Inquisition, which many tolerated and praised. And of course, since it is not nearly as woke as Dragon Age Inquisition, it is never going, and it's not nearly as woke as Pokemon. The latest games, the Switch games, are a lot more woke than this. And I know it's controversial to say it, but body type A and B. That's my answer. Body type A and B. And diversity everywhere. It's not nearly as woke as that. It's not nearly as woke as Dragon Age Inquisition. It's not nearly as woke as Baldur's Gate 3 with the bear sex stuff. And you tolerated all those games. So of course Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 was going to be a success. Because if you tolerated those woke games, this one was going to be a success. I would even say the level of wokeness of this game is on par. If we had an accurate measure, we don't have it, I don't have it, but I think it would be on par with the latest release of Monster Hunter. And if that game is not woke enough to scare away most people, and remember, most people are not us who are against all these things at a very intrinsic level. Most people are basically Asmongold. Imagine Asmongold. Pipa. Who, yes, they find wokeness repellent, but they can still tolerate a little bit of it. Since it's basically as woke as Monster Hunter, it was going to be a success because the first game was good. I will mention 5 games that are more woke than this one, than Kingdom Come Deliverance, without being as woke as Concord, as Dustborn, and which are pre-existing IPs, and which are not pre-existing IPs, but at least were not that much of a failure, even though they were a failure. In order of less to more woke. Pokemon. And I'm saying they are more woke than this one, so no, Dragon Age is not. Pokemon, the latest games. Dragon Age Inquisition. Baldur's Gate 3. Starfield. And Fallout 4. Yep, Fallout 4. No, Fallout 4 would be about after Starfield, but yeah, Fallout 4 had the woke elements in it already. Starfield was the wokest of the ones I mentioned, but all of these games had woke elements already. And Starfield is the one that did it worse, and still was not the level of miserable failure that you had with Avowed. Avowed is about Starfield in that regard. Avowed is really like the line of the failing point of wokeness. When it has that much wokeness, it's guaranteed to fail. And if it is a new IP, even Starfield, for example, if it is a new IP, yeah, it will have it harder. But Kingdom Come Deliverance is not nearly as woke as Dragon Age Inquisition, as Baldur's Gate 3. And they were very successful games, and they were more woke than this one, because what's the woke thing in this? A retcon of the protagonist as homosexual and the most annoying black character in the history of black characters. Of token black characters, to be more precise. The annoying token black character and gay romance. and a gay romance retcon. Those are the woke elements in Kingdom Come Deliverance. Compare that to Baldur's Gate 3 with bear sex, homosexual bear sex, most importantly. We had memes about that. The thing is, people forgave that. I'm not surprised that people forgave the retcon. Different people have different tolerance levels. Of course, some like myself have a lower tolerance level, but there are people who really have big tolerance thresholds, and those are mostly the people who are the vast majority of consumers. Of course, I will say it, wokeness is a guaranteed harm to the product. If something was a success despite it, it was despite it, and it would be an even bigger success without it. And when something is a failure, you have Tash. People will never forget Tash. Basically, Tash is worse than Musa, because Musa is evidently annoying, and people are annoyed. But Tash is annoying, and you are supposed to tolerate Tash. You are not supposed to like Musa. Musa is evidently annoying. But with Tash, you have to tolerate Tash. At least in terms of the canon of the game, you have to tolerate Tash. You have to like Tash. Musa is not supposed to be likable. Musa is very evidently intentionally annoying. But well, that's it for today. As you saw, false outrage can mislead you and even make you not notice the real problems. Have a good one.